So let's give it a second. There we go. We're all recording. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining our Lunch and Learn session today, connecting with industry leaders to talk about living in two different worlds. And for those of you that have been following the series all the way along, you can see the progression of messages and some consistent themes that you see through each of these sessions. A few center on people changing things in their lives and needing to be comfortable with being uncomfortable in order to be or have the opportunity to grow. Other topics have centered around how do you navigate that in your own world with diversity challenges, and can we be more active in helping people feel included, right? That's another thread that we've had throughout these discussions. So we come today to a topic which can be kind of personal because we're talking about being odd. We're talking about the fact that you're always going to be odd in one world or another that you live in. And how do you navigate that world, those two worlds, without losing yourself? So we're blessed to have two very great leaders here to lead our discussion, but we have a small group and the idea is to have a discussion about this. So we do want everyone to feed into this, right? We have a great diverse crowd on the call today. So let's enjoy input from everyone on this topic. So I'm going to open with that topic of being odd. And I'll tell my story, and I know each of you will fill in. But being a woman in a male-dominated field back 30 years ago was a lot different than it is now. So I had to develop a lot of skills and behaviors that would help me to be successful in that kind of a world, right? So I had to be assertive and always had to be better prepared and know the topic inside and out when I went in front of a customer, and that earned some credibility and helped me to shape how I approach my work like every day. But then when I come home, sometimes that brand isn't necessarily appreciated, right? Like you can't be the big boss when you walk into your house all the time. And if you are interacting with family and friends who don't necessarily come from a professional world, they might not appreciate that kind of a brand as well. And so being odd becomes normal for people like me and some of the other people on the phone that you'll hear about today. And so I found myself not sharing things with those different worlds in order to not compromise or injure the relationships that I was having with that other world, right? If these weren't people that travel outside the country, you can't be talking about how many time zones you've been in the last 2 weeks. So navigating that and without losing your soul is sometimes kind of tricky. So Mao, this topic came up when we were talking about this at dinner, right? You come from the Hmong community, right? And you're smart and you're a girl. All kinds of things that make you odd. Can you share a little bit about your story and your history that way?
So being odd, right? I mean, I think my entire life I've been odd. A little bit of culture 101 for you. I mean, I should have been the daughter that married into a nice family and became a wife and a mother, right? And I chose a different path. I decided that I wanted to be independent, if you will. So I mean, from the get-go, I was different. The only female electrical engineer that I know of from my culture. Though there are many other engineers, but the only electrical engineer that I know of. But anyways, I guess I'm gonna back up just a little bit. I started my career in a non-technical field, right? And engineering is actually my second career. And I guess what adds more oddness to me is, you know, I was a non-traditional student, returning to college at age 28 to pursue my second career as an engineer, right? So I was stacked against young, fresh minds, and learning how to navigate that, right? And prove to my peers and prove to my faculty that I was worthy of being in their classroom. Um, that was challenging for me, and then even entering the engineering workforce as an intern, like many of you probably did, except I was 30 years old when I interned. you know, and as I transitioned from an intern into a professional role, I was by default lumped into early career, or I was branded as early career by definition. So, I think throughout my entire career, I had to be really, really intentional about the perspective, or the brand I want to deliver, depending on which group I was with, whether I was at home with my parents, whether I was in college, interning professionally, whatever it was, right? And always being deliberate about making sure that I'm um, aware of the environment I'm in. But also staying true to who I am, right? And I think that has everything to do with the branding of this is, I am a go-getter. I get things done. And whether I'm your friend, I'm planning an event, or I'm at work trying to, be the hero that solves the really complex problem. Um, but yeah, myself in a nutshell, and some of the ways that I've been odd and had to navigate those things.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for sharing, Mao. I see so many parallels in what you shared with my own history, and I think we're going to hear some of that from Morella as well. Morella, would you like to share your background and story?
Yes. Hi. Hello to everyone. I'm going to share my background, but I just wanted to position myself while listening to you guys and to Mao a little bit what we discussed previously. Not only that my life has changed drastically with the career path and the oddness and name it. The fact I'm a woman in a men's world, like many other women that work in engineering, actually, and IT, and especially in manufacturing and leading industrial domains. But I'm also focusing, and I think I would like to highlight the change of vocabulary and mindset from me, 20-something years, to, I don't want to say my age now. So just as an idea, I used to say at the beginning of the career, make it or break it. I'm saying it now, strive. I used to say challenge. Now I never use that word. I said, what's the opportunity? I used to say odd. Now I'm saying different. So different is good. Odd is interesting, but different is good. Good different. And then last not least important, because we are mentioned how we manage between family life and work situation. I'm always thinking about silos. So work silo bad, house silo good, which means that when I go home, I try to leave outside everything that's work related for very good reasons. I need to cater to my family, but at the same time, I need a break in my head from daily work related subjects, at least for the time I'm catering to my family. And because of that, I shielded my family from everything else that was happening at work, good or bad, maybe mentioning briefly. And they saw my, my moving up the ladder in the company like something positive, but not necessarily overpowering their daily activities or not necessarily overpowering their daily discussions. Why did I do that? Because everything, as Mao and you, Mary, also has to have with experience. So I immigrated, so I'm qualifying right there as a person that moved from a place to another. I'm a woman, so I was running competency centers when I was hiring this company, and where women were not supposed to be hired because I was traveling half of the year. Then I changed professions. I was landing in economical crisis in Canada when I arrived here. Continues is enlarging my portfolio, looking for masters of applied science in domains. Nothing worked, still economical crisis. So I switched quickly into IT, and that's where I am now. So that why I'm very keen to say that I'm embracing challenge and treating it as an opportunity, because that helped me a great deal to keep my sanity, first of all, which is important. And the second part is to take every single situation as an opportunity to learn how not to do things, or opportunity to learn how to go on that path and continue improve. Also, another thing which I learned from all of these roadblocks that I had, which again were opportunities for me, being taken, Mao, maybe you mentioned already, as a junior. Actually, yes, for sure, everyone goes through the same exercise. I used to be an engineer. I switched into IT. Guess what? They took me as a junior.
Yeah.
So with all the background I had and so on. Lesson learned, very good. Very upset at the time, but was so good because they asked me to support all the plant systems. So I managed to learn all the domains of the industrial in a plant and how it's functioning. If they wouldn't have put me as a junior, probably I would have been focusing and specialized on a certain domain. I wouldn't have learned that many things. So that's why I'm saying, if we manage to get what is an opportunity in everything we are faced with, and learn from that and try to put away what's negative, because that's not helping anyways, especially if you cannot fix it. I think that's what I chose to do, and I think that's how I manage until now. So that's it.
Perfect. Lots of conversation threads and idea threads that have been throughout the conversations here. Do we have commentary from the group on the phone?
Hey, it's Charles. Hi.
Hey, Charles.
A question for any of the three of you after, hearing your background, a little bit about your experience. How about now? Do you still feel weird now in the industry that you're in? Like you're some kind of anomaly sometimes, where there aren't people like you or have experiences like you around?
Go, Mao.
Oh no, I was gonna say no, I don't. I think that, you know, for me, I'm intentional about that. Like, I'm not going to, I recognize I'm different, but like Meryl said, different's good. I bring fresh perspectives. My peers and those around me value my diverse background, because I approach problems differently than they do. So though I know I'm different, I'm appreciated as my difference is appreciated, right? So I don't feel uncomfortable being different, and I think that that's something that I had to learn to be comfortable with. And when I decided, like I'm different, but that's great, that's fine, and I feel fine.
I would even put it in a different way, Mao. I used to be, no, let's say the way it is. I used to have a complex, and going into meetings, and Mary knows me for a long time, and being stressed. But now actually I see it as an opportunity. Again, why? Because people expect as a woman to be something or provide something. So usually it's a surprise when you come with something where you are knowledgeable, you know exactly what you're talking about, you can not compete, but work hand in hand with men. You develop as a team, so you are treated as one of their own. So the expectation, I wouldn't say is lower, but at least can be a surprise when somebody in our position is having such a type of a job. I mean, at least myself, I'm leading IT industrial in my company, which is, as you can imagine, for construction materials, one of the domains which are usually heavy-duty men. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, as you both were talking, I was thinking about what we were talking about a couple of months ago, having to do with your brand and being comfortable with yourself and not compromising yourself. When I first got to be a global executive, I thought you had to walk around and act like a global executive, and you had to have this veneer of, gravitas. Then I got out there and I started working with the most effective managers in very advanced companies, IBM and Intel. They're like on the leading edge of everything, next to Rockwell, of course. But that environment is nurturing to creativity and your own personal personality coming out. And I realized then that I had permission. I could be myself. I could be a little fun. Charles laughs at me sometimes on my goofy things, and I know that I sometimes my approach isn't always what they would expect from a global executive, but you encounter people where they find it's refreshing. And I've also found that when you encounter people like that that are so comfortable that they can let themselves come out, that they are really the experts that you want to be attached to, as long as they really know what they're talking about, right? So I think that it makes for a better and more enjoyable life if you don't have to shield those differences, if you can embrace them instead and make it part of your brand. And like everyone's shared, I mean, the world's different now. Things are much better. One person I'd like to call out is Wilkestar.
Yeah.
Wilkestar, we've had an opportunity to work together over this last year and, talk about somebody who's navigating male-dominated fields, right, from an immigration perspective into the university world. I mean, there's just so much. Like, what has your journey been like? Oh, you're on mute.
Right. The journey has been long. Like so many of you or all of us, I mean, even our male allies who are on the team here, you've also had your own journey, and your journey hopefully has also included rooting for someone who has felt odd, or maybe you have felt odd in your own different manner. So the journey has been long, not just here, but also in Kenya, where the oddness is even different and sometimes yet so profound. So yesterday I was actually watching, I don't know if any of you watched Picture a Scientist, that showed yesterday by Nova, PBS Nova. Mirella, maybe you couldn't, but if you can, it will be a very eye-opening documentary to watch. It talks about the life of 3 scientists, and one of which was very graphic. And I was like, oh my goodness, I hope that doesn't happen, but yet it does. So when I was watching it, it literally took me back 20-something years when I was an undergrad. And it was a mixture of emotions. Should I get angry? So things that maybe I had put in the back burner kind of came back into my mind. But then, so some of which has been, again, male dominated, because we are still, I don't know, less than 18%. I mean, the workforce, it's 25% thereabout in the workforce. But I think when they talk about the workforce, it's inclusive of many other professions, but still, truth be told, it's still male dominated. So the oddness was, in high school, I picked engineering. Actually, I wanted to be a doctor because all the previous, I went to a female-only high school, and most of those who did well either chose medicine, pharmacy. Nobody went into dentistry. So it was basically those two. And so because of that, I wanted to do medicine. But here I am. I picked the second choice as production engineering without thinking. I was like, just in case I miss it. And yes, I missed medicine by 2 points just because of the number of students the government could support at the time in college in medicine, because then the rule is sliding depending on how many people. So missed it by 2 points because I guess in biology I got a B+ instead of an A. So here I am picking in engineering, and I remember scrambling and telling my dad, no, we need to go to the nursing school. I need to change my major now. And so we went to nursing school, and the dean of nursing school looked at me and she said, you you did so well in physics and math, it's not by chance. I think you'll thrive as an engineer. But I was so adamant. In the end, my dad said, you know what? He didn't have a car, so we had been walking for so long. He said, I am so fatigued, and yet I think you can still make it as an engineer. Why don't you just give it a try? Give it a try. But I knew that give it a try from my dad means you should do it. There is no giving it a try for 1 year and then leaving it. Not in Kenya, of course. You don't leave something after putting money into it for a year. And so that's the first thing. Got into engineering. I felt scared actually at first because none of the people from my high school had picked engineering. And when I got to the graduate school, not graduate, the undergrad, we were a cohort of 120. I think there were just about 10 of us spread across 6 engineering programs. And so mine had 3. Hey, that was great. Electrical had 1, textile had 2, chemical had 3. I still remember them. But then looking at the upperclassmen and women, there was one 5th year, maybe just 1 or 2. And so we saw the attrition even before we started. Yesterday's documentary talks about a leaky pipeline. The leaky pipeline is such that as industry and we in academia, parents, mentors, we are trying to get female into STEM, but it's becoming a leaky pipeline because we see them leave for one reason or the other. But yesterday's documentary was because of the environment that is super male dominated, that's not being made a good environment to nurture women into these areas, whether in academia or in the workforce. And so in undergrad, we saw the leaky pipeline even before we started. And what did that do? I felt it made us work a lot harder than we should have. Well, I'll put it differently. We just didn't have a life completely. To a point where Charles and Hamid and Ryan and everyone else, you will laugh at this, to a point when if a male student hit on you, you shunned it. Because to you, having a relationship meant academic suicide, as we called it. You couldn't go on, let alone if you conceived. That in Kenya used to really be academic suicide completely. And so there were things that, oddities that kind of shaped the way we interacted with the environment, the way we interacted with the faculty members, the way we interacted with our students, our peers. And I think if I were to speak with my SWE Society for Women Engineers group, I know they're also still navigating that now. They're negotiating. Should I go for this study group? What did this interviewer mean by telling me this and this and that? Was it okay for them to ask me this question? So there are oddities that enable you find a way out. In grad school, the entire time I was the only African and African American in my program, not in the entire engineering program, just in industrial engineering. At first it felt odd, when the then department chair, whenever she referred to me in the stance of research that was directed to HIV and AIDS, interventions. At first, I didn't mind it. No, I minded it, but I didn't speak up. So those were oddities. And I wondered if my peers picked it up. None of them told me. But it wasn't once, twice, 3 times. It was numerous. But I wanted to say, despite the fact that I was the only African, actually, I thought, okay, what am I doing as a grad student who's a teaching assistant to bring more into the program? But again, there were few undergrads who were female, who were African Americans in industrial engineering, and yet industrial engineering actually, and biomedical and environmental, the three leading, computer science as well, three leading programs in the number of percentages of female. But then, just like Mao said, over time, you create this, you get into this family of either grad students or the peers in your workforce who know you, bring the diversity that you bring in, and then you feel comfortable. Yes. So in grad school, I felt comfortable. And then coming into UWM, when I taught my first class, Hamid, I didn't tell any one of you, I wanted to pack my bags and go back to Florida because I felt the reception in the Midwest was different. And so at the time, we had a grant writing support, Marjorie Pichowski. She kind of pulled me aside. She said, don't take it personally. It is different in the Midwest, but just stay in there. You'll find your way. And I did. I found my way. But, I think the other thing that made me not quite stay, but made me go on was, number one, okay, these are students, institution of higher learning. You can't force them to like something. So either they will like statistics and see something out of it, but I said my role to play is to motivate them towards what this can do in their future. So those are the oddities. I think the oddity that I go through right now, but not necessarily, I mean, in UWM, yes, sometimes someone will say something and I wonder, okay, did they listen to what they say before they said it? I think the oddness that I feel most times right now is in conferences.
Oh.
In my area, the conferences that we attend, sometimes, I think right now they are predominantly Asian male or sometimes Iranian male, quite dominated. But still, I think
you need to go with me to some of my conferences, Focustar.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'll say that that's changing.
Yeah.
And maybe also because I've been in academia for a while now, again, I'm finding that community of people that know me are supportive and see what I bring to the table. So it takes a while. And so the oddness begins and then it kind of goes on. But Mao, I wonder, when you said that you were an atypical student, did you find yourself having to minimize the fact that this is your second degree?
I didn't think I would have to explain that this was my second career. So I didn't minimize it. But nor did I think I had to highlight it. I think I was naive in that, hey, I clearly am, I look middle career. Everyone's going to know that I am. I have a family. And I was naive to the fact that I was going to have to prove that my first career is valuable and that I can apply that in my current work. And that, I'm credible. So so I didn't downplay. I just didn't know I'd have to bring it back up.
Well, today, and in fact, actually, the topic of one of our earlier conversations over Lunch and Learn was to purposefully seek out different experiences. Short gigs in different roles is not necessarily viewed as a bad thing now because you pick up all these experiences, right?
Yeah, and actually, so to add on to kind of what I was saying and what you're saying as well, because I did shift, I was in a non-technical, role, and I shifted into something very technical, right? Electrical engineering. And as a matter of fact, though I didn't think I had to bring it up, I also didn't think that it was a game changer. I didn't think it made me a better engineer. I mean, it was actually when one of my allies, one of my mentors said, and he had to call it out actually, and he said, Mao, like, that's valuable. He said, Mao, that is very valuable. You should always highlight it. You should always tell people about your experience, because that's what shapes you into who you are today. That's why you approach problems the way you approach them. That's why you solve them the way you do. And that's why you create relationships the way you do. It's because of all the experience you've had. So, thank you to him. I'm saying his name in my head right now, but he was actually the first one that really kind of, though I didn't downplay it, I didn't think it was valuable either. So, back to the being felt like when he gave me permission to talk about it, then I felt confident. Then I talked about it. But had he not, or had someone not given me permission and told me I should talk about it, I don't know that I would have.
And I think what I've learned so far, thanks Mao, is in my interactions with students, I seek their experiences out. Mm-hmm. And because, like you said, I know when it's not quite someone giving you permission, and the word here I'm missing, but enabling you, to embrace it. So I seek it out from students, either through formal, detailed conversations about who they are with the rest of the team, or even later on when they're picking their projects, then I'll kind of probe it so that they pick a project when they're presenting to the rest of their peer. We'll let that background come out. And it's beautiful.
I want to see if there's any commentary from the other listeners. Lisa, Hamid, Charles, Ryan, any comments you'd like to make?
So Lisa here. So the question I would ask all of you is, as you describe your experiences, a lot of where you gained your confidence to be your authentic selves in both parts of your lives has come over a period of time and learning and experience. And how would you, what counsel would you give a new graduate? Someone who's just at the beginning of his or her career, to be able to do that, to accelerate that process quickly, and to be authentic and yet feel like they're stepping into the professional world and being taken seriously, and with all of the attributes they have.
Well, I would think what I always thought, which is try and not being afraid to fail. Don't choose comfort zone. You have time to do that later on. That when you are young and you are at the beginning and you have all energy, you have to try and you have to fail. This is the only way you can learn. And again, you might not be sure or convinced about your opportunities. I was not. Mao has changed. Wikistar has changed, whether it's country, career, and so on, doesn't really matter. Everything is a good experience. So don't look and hear whatever the other, unless it's something bad for you, but whatever the others are telling you to do or guiding you to do, you have to try and make your own experience. And by this, you can make your choices.
And you do have to make choices for yourself.
Yes.
You should not make choices that are based on anybody else. You have to do what's right for you. Hamid, you're coming in.
Sure. I think I've been lucky to some extent that I've been growing up during the 60s. Probably some of you don't even remember. It's kind of a revolutionary period and I was young and I was going to school in a third world country that against anything, against establishment, against traditions. Socialism was so popular. Exploitation of working class, exploitation of women. I brought up with this culture. It has the advantage that I think I've always been with the new idea, the new revolutionary ideas, fighting against tradition. At the same time, maybe it is advantage because many of us people like me they think since they are against tradition, so that's good enough. Maybe we understand everything, but maybe this is the shortcoming. Otherwise, I've been lucky that I brought up this culture. It has many disadvantages. We revolt against anything, even school, even anything which was not socialism or new ideas. That was a disadvantage of it. But at the same time, we at least we condemned so many of the backward traditions. Even if I'm coming from Middle East, third world countries, we always, not me, I think 90% of the students, particularly engineering students, for some reason, they were so against the old system and for the new systems. But as I told you, we miss so many things because it's just not right. You are fighting for it. You should have also feeling for it from the other side too.
Yeah, live by example is always the best.
Ryan, I think you were going to come in and say something.
Is that right?
Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute, Ryan. Too many mute buttons.
Yeah, he's actually not on mute. But anyway, Ryan, as you set up to address Lisa's question, I think my proposal would be for someone who is either a new graduate getting into a new job or even our own, students here. Two things: finding an ally who is just really on your side, objectively on your side, who will be very quick to point out stuff that you need to do differently, but yet have the best of your interest in their heart. And then secondly, finding a community. While we are thriving in this male-dominated or whatever dominated world that we are in, I don't want to just emphasize the male-dominated part of STEM, finding that place that is either your support system. To me, actually, it's been the WISCAMP program. I talk about it a lot, which is an NSF Alliance for Minority Participation, because there it's something that pulls me away and gives me that larger perspective of STEM, not only engineering, because we serve students from across STEM areas. And so that has given me belonging, but also it's given me purpose, working with the students in that group, seeing them graduate. Some of them have gone into grad school and are still communicating back. In the workplace, it could be either, there are so many, in Rockwell Automation, when I was there, I saw so many communities, whether it's a community of science, community of women, community of community engagement. So yeah, finding a community is key.
It's really great.
Ryan, I think now you're muted. Okay.
Are you able to hear me okay now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, great, thank you. Well, first of all, I just want to thank everyone for their time today and just creating the time and space for this dialogue and this conversation. I did have a point that I wanted to add that really resonated with me. I believe it was something that Mao had mentioned about realizing the value in your experiences, regardless of your career path. And it reminded me of an illustration that I saw recently where there's a diagram of the career trajectory where it's very linear, right? You're going from one step to the next is that upward trajectory. And then the reality where there's twists and there's turns and it goes up and down. And I know for myself personally, I'm also working through understanding what that career path looks like as someone who is kind of earlier in their career. And to your point, trying to understand and realize the value of each of those experiences, even if they don't seem to sit on that linear trajectory. In what ways is that adding value to where you are and where you want to be? So just for me, kind of food for thought, something I'm personally working through at the moment. And I think another part of that, when things don't go in the way you expect them to be, it's so important to build resilience. And that's another thing that I've been reading more about and something I think to practice. Just like a muscle, you have to practice and to be able to be a resilient person.
Yeah, unless it's health or family, nothing else can bring you down, really. And unless you try it, you don't know your limits. That's clear. So,
I love that.
yeah, I would work only with stretch goals because that's the only way you can strive. And I repeat, I think the only thing that motivates me is a challenge. And the other thing that motivates me even more, if hopefully it doesn't happen often, but it happened, if I fail, because that's the only way you appreciate going up. If it's too flat, well, it's no fun in it. So you have to have these hopes that I always did, whether it's career paths, like changing professions and changing domains in which I'm working. Even the company I am for 24 years now, since I got from university in IT this time, the third career. I switch into all the possible domains in IT. You have to have this starting all over again, and applying your experience and diversifying your portfolio. It's so much fun. Now for people that like that, but there are people that like it flat and boring, and they are like that. But you have to see where you are positioned, and you have to see how you want to go about it.
Yeah. I agree with that, and Lisa, to also, to add on to what all the great advice everyone already gave, for me, based off of the experience I've had, I mean, I was really, really intentional and deliberate about prioritizing my time and allocating my efforts, and picking up extra projects that would enable me to be highlighted in a way that was going to elevate my brand and create credibility for myself, right? And I think it was was it Marilla that you had mentioned about? Oh, I'm sorry, Wilkie. Sorry, being around creating a community, right? So and finding mentorship. I think for me, it was really about finding that mentor, that sponsor that's really, really going to advocate for me when I'm not there, and empower me and show me where I could continue to improve, personally and professionally, in hard skills and soft skills, right? So I agree with what everyone said. I mean, finding that mentor, finding that community, and just really being intentional about continuing to grow and highlight strengths or areas that you want to be known for.
Lisa, I'm curious, because I know you. What are some of the oddities that you've had to navigate in your career?
Well, you have to look at where I am within the college. I mean, you're kind of softballing me with that one, I think, but it's an entirely different world for me, with my world versus academia, as well as being in a college of engineering and really understanding more of, given that my background is not in engineering or the sciences. So to learn that and navigate that and work with a lot of very talented people who are expert at that. So I looked at it, I think a little, Morella, as you talk about it, the ups and the downs and the excitement of it. And to me, it's leaning in and being very authentic and intentional and asking those questions and learning, getting to know people on a one-on-one basis and what they're about and what they're passionate about has been extremely helpful for me. Mm. And I didn't have my camera on earlier because I was finishing my lunch. So
it is a lunch and learn, yes.
So apologies.
I'm the only ones that don't get to talk. I mean, don't get to eat.
and since I like the words in general, two more things that are important for Ryan. Backbone, very important, at least in my career. I don't know your experience, guys. When keeping it straight, I never had problems. May have looked that I have problems, but nobody kicked me out yet. And the other one, based on my experience with my peers and so on, kicking the butt is a step forward. So if you are fired, is an opportunity, no challenge. If you are hired, maybe a challenge, not necessarily an opportunity. So that's a little bit what I mean, you have to stay positive because nothing is wrong about learning. Now, if you persevere in wrong, that's a different story. But as long as you do this, path in your life, laterally or vertically, is perfect. No problem.
There's a lot of learning that comes from what was previously perceived as failure. I don't think failure is looked at. I think it's more like theory's been tested and it didn't work. That's okay. Now we know it doesn't work and we can go on to the next thing.
Before we used to be called disruptive, and now disruptive is good. Before
Yes.
disruptive was bad. So, it's all about perception and about you going on your path and doing what you like, because it's the only thing that can motivate you to move forward as compared to yourself. The rest is not that relevant.
That's right. It's not good to be too comfortable, let's just say, right? It's good to be uncomfortable because that's when you're growing.
Okay, I can add one comment regarding my experiences. I think it's not just to understand, to be educated, to feel for others. I think it should be a live conversation. It should be sharing experiences. Other than that, as I told, it's all education in all the culture that I've been in, all this student movements, all of them are positive. But still, as students, as engineers, when you see your fellow student, woman engineers, you think, well, all it counts if you are a good student, if you are good grades, that is the focus here. When you are graduate school, you say, okay, if you have good publication, that's all it counts. You never can have a feeling, or you cannot be in the other shoes, except is a conversation. You hear their emotion, their experiences, back and forth conversation that you can learn. I think this is the best way that you can learn. No other way.
Mm-hmm.
What a great talk today. This is one of our best ones. I love it. Fortunately, it's recorded so everyone can listen to it. It'll be posted on our website in the events page, along with all of the other past Lunch and Learns. So I want to thank you all for your active engagement in the conversation. And I think we all come together with the hopes that the things that we say can be inspiring to the ones who will follow us. So you've done your job today. Thank you very much. And with that, I'll close the call. And you guys have a great day. I will talk to you again soon, I'm sure.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye.